There's a lot of questions in this world. There's a lot of hurting people out there, and I think that's what today's journal has always been about, because there are no strong answers sometimes in the world for what goes on, but faith in Jesus Christ makes a difference. And today on the show, this is going to be the very last show that we do of today's journal, and it's 522 opportunities it's been to share Jesus Christ with Nashville, with Middle Tennessee, and a little bit of Kentucky, and also in Mobile, Alabama, and Pensacola, Florida. We're playing it over WHBR, and we thank them down there for watching, and we thank you all for watching. But stick with us for an hour here today. We've got Ron Campbell coming up. We've got John Primm, a diadem artist, and Ted Randall, oldies radio personality. Let me sing one of my favorite songs. You're going to hear a lot of good music today.
Bloodstains are on our hands. Are we fighting for peace, or just making war? Defending each human cause for freedom, we've torn down walls. Are we killing our future before it is born? Where is all the reason in this rhyme of confusion? Do we search for the truth, or just rest in illusion? Isn't it time for Jesus? Isn't it time we pray? When our best laid plans only fail in our hands, and we cannot find our
our devotion today, I want us to look at John chapter 14. And so many people look at John 14 and they look at those first verses about let not your heart be troubled in my Father's house and all those. But one of my favorite verses is verse 15. It's, if you love me, keep my commandments. And if we want to ever make a resolution for any year, what a great resolution to make, to love the Lord more than ever before. Because he says, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. People say, well, does that mean the 10 commandments, I obey all of those and everything? No, Jesus only gave 2 commandments. He gave the commandments to love the Lord your God with all your heart and everything that's in you, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And he said, on these 2 commandments hang the entire law and the prophets, the entire Bible. If we'll do those things, we'll begin to fulfill the law of what this book says of love. And so love is the most important thing here we're talking about, because it says, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. Let's talk about that for a minute. First of all, love and obedience go together. A lot of people like love, they don't like the obedience part, but they go together. Okay? If you love, you will keep. Okay? It's a together thing. You can't part these 2 things when it comes to the Lord. Secondly, obedient love is a very broad matter. It covers more than just commandments. It covers more than just do exactly what you're told. It involves knowing what He wants. What does the Lord want for my life? Where can I find out what the Lord wants for my life? What is the will of God for my life? As we approach this new year, how can I find that? It's only found through the Word of God. The Word of God is the will of God for your life and for mine. Obedient love always brings us closer to the Lord. Remember, He loved us in the first place. We get to love Him in the second place, and He adds love to all of those that are obedient to Him. Obedient love is only possible by the Holy Spirit. Okay? He's the one who enables us to obey and live by what He says. A lack of obedience is an evidence of a lack of love. Lack of love is shown many times and may be the result of 3 things. Ignorance, maybe we don't know. Secondly, rebellion, maybe we just don't want to do it. And third, maybe we've never really had a true love relationship and it's hard to really know. People always want to be in love, fall in love, but I say grow in love, because God is love. He loved us first, and while we were still sinners, He sent His Son to die for us. So if there's any resolution to make this. Love the Lord more this year. Go deeper with Him by knowing what He expects of you, and obey all that you know. Give all you know of yourself to all you know of Jesus, and He'll make you what He wants you to be. God bless you.
For those of you that are just joining us, this is a 1-hour show today. It is the final show of today's journal, the final episode, the 522nd episode of today's journal. In the last 2.5 years, we've had some wonderful guests on here, and the man that I'm going to talk with first this morning is one you recognize better than just almost anybody. He is the host of the longest running video Southern Gospel show in the United States. Is that right?
I think you're right. The show was on, I think, 9 or 10 years with Ronnie Page, and Ronnie left and went to Arkansas over there for the show there. And I've had it. You asked me when we were talking by phone last night. Asked me how long. It's at least been 2.5 years that I've hosted the program, and then before that, I filled in for a couple of years. So about 5 years I've been associated with it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. You've done a wonderful job, too. You've been faithful, and I wanted to talk about the show. And, of course, Ron Campbell is the name of my guest here today, for those of you that don't know, and I don't know why they wouldn't after all that time.
Well, once they see this face, I'm sure they'd never forget it. I was talking to Ted Randall, radio man, and I was in radio for years before we started doing any TV, and you get used to going in and, in early morning, and you put the coffee on and let the old transmitter warm up and hope, when it's cold weather, hope it comes on the air on time at 6 o'clock if you let it warm up in time. But radio people, you talk back and forth, and you talk to a lot of people on the phone. You never see them. First time I'd seen or met Ted Randall, which is your guest on today, and so it's good to see him.
Yeah.
But I know him anyway. I just haven't seen him.
Well, this is great to have media people on the very last show of this. Now, tomorrow is your last show.
Last show.
And we're going to miss seeing you out here. This is the only thing you've been doing out here, is just coming out to do this old-time singing every morning. But you really know all those people, don't you?
I've worked with them over the years. I've been doing a lot of MCing of live shows, even before I came here, and I worked in radio. and I got to know and meet them through the years. And
How long have you been in radio?
I started, I've been in radio ever since I've been doing anything, 25 years, I guess.
You got out of those diapers and right into the radio,
and
the booth, huh?
I started in high school at that time filing records and hanging around, and they got tired of seeing me hang around.
Really?
And started giving me a first job, I think it was $5, and then I went up.
$5. So. Well, that beats what you're getting here, isn't it?
But it's been a good experience, and you know, since you mentioned that, I guess a lot of people don't realize that we do this, myself and
That's right.
and yourself and all. Gratis. We do it because it's a type of ministry. I feel like it's a type of ministry and has been.
Mm-hmm.
And,
yeah, I feel like the ministry comes from the other people, and we're kind of the catalysts, aren't we, Ron?
We kind of get it started.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. We get it on the air and let them fly with it. That's right. What do you do now? A lot of people will call and they ask for you like you're here all day long, but you're not. What do you do?
I do let me try to explain this. I work for the legislature. And we have the state has set up a broadcast network. It's a service for radio stations throughout the state, and I do a daily interview with a legislator since I work for the House of Representatives, and I put that in the form of a short newscast, which the radio stations can use if they want to in their newscast. And terminology, the intro, I'll do the intro, which explains who it is and what the subject is about, and then do an out cue. And but it lasts, say, a minute 75 seconds, and whatever the subject range is, and I put it on, and radio stations can call toll free and get it. So
okay, all right. Now you also sing a little bit too, and we've been threatening to sing together here one of these days. But I think with this bass voice of yours, they can probably hear that's what it is. We need a whole quartet, don't we?
One thing I couldn't sing is tenor.
Yeah, I don't think so.
And so, well, maybe you can sing 2 or 3 parts. So.
Oh yeah,
us, you know.
at once at least. Okay.
And I'm sure Ted can sing a part. You know, most radio people can.
Well, we might get him whipped into it before it's over with and get real dangerous.
But I've enjoyed your program, Susan, and I know you've put a lot into it. And you know what you see is the final product of a lot of work it goes into. And of course, on mine, I run in here, pick a few videos, and go to it. You know, but
there's more to it.
But yours, you've been doing a lot of work in it.
Yeah. You have a famous sister. What is her name?
Juanita Rose.
Juanita Rose.
Yeah, she's been singing with Hank Snow on his shows, road shows, for many years. And
is she still doing that?
She does it ever so often. Of course, Hank doesn't do that many road shows, and but she occasionally does it. And she has a booking agency that she books country and gospel groups out.
Okay.
It's called Talent Unlimited.
That helps you to stay up to date too with what's going on, all those periodicals coming in. We have just a couple minutes, and I want to talk about this local production thing. And how important do you think it is, Ron, to have local production at a television station, at this one particularly?
Well, I think it's the most important, my estimation, I think it's the most important thing a station can do. You know, the satellite programs will take care of themselves, the programs you see, network programs, which is very important. But I think if you have the local touch of the programming, it's very important to keep in touch with the communities around this area and wherever the area might be. And because you involve the people, you know, your satellite programming or your network programming, people see it, but they feel more in touch, I think, with local host, or in your case, a celebrity. Seeing people they know, and they can talk to them. And we give local announcements and church announcements, that sort of thing. So I think it's very important. You know,
I really do too, and I think
you were speaking of that, Sonny Schroeder, who is played Enos on the Dukes of Hazzard, and actors went on to many other parts. He's very active in child abuse and that sort of thing, and he's been a guest on the program a couple of times, as well as several of the gospel singers, and just a number of them. It's hard to think of all of them now.
Yes. Well, you've had so many people come in and sit in and co-host and sub-host and things for you, and David Ditmore and Eric Foster, who's nice enough to be doing our sound here today, went on to the Fox, the cute Eric, you called him, And who were some of the, of course, Sherry Robinson.
Sherry Robinson. to name a few. Of course, Gary Hurlston, who's was with what we'd call a dancing pig for a long time, produced it, and Tony Singleton. So we've had a lot of people. It's hard to. We'd like to thank all of them and all the viewers and supporters of our program.
Well, Ron, we thank you,
very
for
much.
your faithfulness to Channel 39, and we'll keep in touch.
All right.
We
Never
will.
can tell what'll happen.
That's right. Well, we're going to take a break right here, and I want you to meet Ted Randall. He's with Oldies Radio, and he's going to have to tell me what those call letters are here when he comes on the air. But Oldies Radio, 7 to midnight, and Monday through Friday, you can hear the voice of Ted Randall and call in and get those oldies. We'll tell you how to do that. We'll be right back. All right, we're back, and I've got a fellow with me that called me the other day. You might remember, some of you watching the show After Mine. The chaplain of Bourbon Street, Bob Harrington, was on for several weeks here, and Ted Randall called in one morning and asked me about Bob and about this thing that Bob called the Lighthouse for the Left. And Ted knows something about the left, the ones that left their first love. Good morning.
How are you this morning?
It's good to have you on television. Nobody gets to see your pretty face.
Yeah, it's different than radio, I can say that. A lot more complicated than radio.
Yeah. Have you ever been on television much?
No,
No,
not at all. So.
How long in radio?
Oh gosh, let's see. I started in radio when I was 15 years old, so that might tell some tales. I don't know.
Okay.
I remember, actually I went to work for a station in Detroit, and my mom had to drive me to work because I didn't have a driver's license at the time. But it was a Christian radio station in the city of Detroit, and I remember there was a revival, a big revival going at the Brightmoor Tabernacle, which is a big Assembly of God church in Detroit, and Jimmy Swaggart was the evangelist. He was at the radio station for a couple of months, so I got to run the board and work with him every day. It was kind of interesting.
All right. Now, you went from Christian to other kinds of format. Have you pretty much done it all on radio?
Yeah, pretty well, yeah.
Really?
Played country for quite a while. And I guess I've settled into the oldies format because probably more than anything else, my age and just being real familiar with the music. You grow up with that music, you know.
Yeah.
And I think the music, I want to say oldies, if you're a Christian and you're involved in a broadcast radio, although I think country has come a long way, the oldies format is one that leaves people, I think, in a little bit better mood after they've listened than other forms of music, you know, a little bit more positive.
Well, yes, for mainstream music, I'll tell you, I sat there and listened one night. I was doing my Christmas cards, and I thought, well, I'm just going to listen and see what Ted is up to. And I listened for a solid 4 hours while I did these, and you're really good.
Oh, thank you.
You are.
It's, you know, if you're in a bad mood, I know this is, and this is really no substitute for Christianity at all. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that. But if you're in a bad mood, and you flip on the oldie station, and you hear Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs sing Little Red Riding Hood or Woolly Bully or something like that, you just can't really be in a grumpy mood and listen to that. And there's some interesting things. Sam the Sham, I noticed in one of the Billboard books, is now a Christian and is a street minister in the city of Memphis.
Really?
And if you've heard the song Rescue Me, Fontella Bass. You know.
Rescue me.
Right. She is an evangelist, I understand, outside of the city of Chattanooga somewhere in an assembly church. And we had the pleasure of meeting a gentleman who used to be with the Rascals, and he's a minister in the city of Lebanon. He used to play bass. Robert Popwell is his name.
Okay.
And he has a church in Lebanon. So it's interesting. The number of artists that were in the old rock and roll era in this in that area that are Christians that are in full-time ministry today. You know, it's
Yeah, I called in that night. You remember, and I asked for. I think it. Who did you say it was? That
it was
did,
Jackie DeShannon's "Put a Little Love in Your Heart."
Put a Little Love in Your Heart. Was that Jackie DeShannon though that you played?
Right.
I had not remembered how Christian that song is.
Yeah, well, it's amazing. A lot of them are more Christian than the lyrics are. You know, more Christian than you might think. You know.
Yeah, we were a lot closer to it back in the 50s and the 60s.
Of course, some of them are pretty way out there. I mean, we never were able to figure out exactly what the Kingsmen were doing with that song "Louie Louie." I don't think anyone ever figured that out. You know?
No, it was just a sound you would fall into. Is that your favorite music now, just 50s and oldies?
I don't know that I could say I have a favorite. You know, I mean, I play this. I would say that when you play it every day, you get tired of it. I don't care what it is you play. If you play it every day,
Too much spaghetti.
But I guess I want to say I think that if you dial up and down on the radio, if you listen to oldies, I think you're maybe in a considerably better mood than you would be listening to other.
I thought maybe you'd go
formats.
home and listen to Rachmaninoff or something like that.
No, actually, no. I've got a real strange sense of anything from classical to folk. I don't know, just all over the place. You know, really.
Well, when you go home at night, you are a father of 2 boys.
Right.
Right. A single father.
Single parent, yes.
Single parent. That's, I think, what we need to talk about today a little bit. And I know that's kind of a hard subject.
Well, it is and it isn't. I guess the thing that disturbs me is that we are a family that got caught in a situation. And I want to say it was almost like getting stuck in a spider web, because once you're in it, you don't really know how to get out of it.
Can you explain some of that?
Yeah. I have 2 boys. One is 15 and one is 10. And the oldest child became a victim of a sexual abuse situation, which we didn't know anything about at the time. It was pretty well near an undetected situation until it raised its head, and it did. It raised its head by the older child then victimizing the younger child.
In a sexual way.
In a sexual, yeah. And he came to me and he told me what happened. Of course, that's like the shock of your life. When something like that happens, you know, how do you react to something like this? You know, like this is going on under the roof of your home. And so I immediately sought professional help. You know, I said, this is too serious of a situation. So we went and talked to some counselors, and we found out at the time, after my older son was counseled and all this, that what he was doing was an act of sexual aggression. Something had been done to him, that he was acting this out on the younger child. This is all foreign to me. See, I didn't know anything about this. You know, I don't know how
you're
this.
learning a lot and don't
Oh
want
yeah,
to.
you know, it's surprising. The disturbing fact was that after you went and you seek the help, the counseling and whatnot, they placed I say they, I'm going to get specific here, Department of Human Services, and obviously through it gets really tangled. It goes, you know, you get into the court system and all this. They required my older son to begin to go to a group meeting. Now, on the surface, that sounds fine, and I thought, well, that's good, you know. We'll get into a group counseling situation, and he can work out some of the problems. And it's very difficult for an adolescent, someone who is 13, 14 years old, who has been victimized that way, because they start going through all the changes that teenagers go through.
Right, and this was somebody he trusted.
Right.
Too. Somebody he
So,
trusted.
the problem is that once he began the counseling, of course, the original counselor that he was with, we were lucky enough, this gentleman was a Christian, and he had a considerable amount of wisdom in the way he handled things, and I thought the counseling went real well. And then the gentleman left the organization, and another man came into the position, and then from that point on it got real crazy.
Almost demonic, you said.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I brought in a manual, and I don't guess there's any way you can actually show this on
No,
the
you might just give us a little bit of what is in there.
I brought in a manual, but this manual was required by the group. In other words, and it was a type of thing that, as a parent, I really didn't have any choice. I couldn't say, no, I don't want my child participating in this, because when I raised this question several times, I was told, oh no, you know, this is mandatory, and if you go against this, you're going to lose custody of your children. In this manual, the first thing that they tell these kids to do here is to go into an area, a private area, and to masturbate and to talk into a tape recorder their fantasies and bring this tape back and discuss all this with her counselor.
Oh my goodness.
And not only that, but
This is counseling.
yes, and also in this little manual here, you'll find it. This I guess they can't show this until. This is a log, and at the top it's headed masturbation tracking form. And we have the date, the time, the description of the fantasy, and we have the pleasure rating from 0 to 10. Now,
Who puts this out?
you want to know?
Yeah.
This is put out by the New York State Council of Churches.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. Now, and it's a required book. In other words, this is something you don't have any choice. And it's I was really, they changed counselors again.
Mm-hmm.
This new counselor came on board, and then he was having these young fellows in this group to discuss openly, requiring them to say, well, did you masturbate this week? If you did, oh yeah, and it just, and I can't help. You see, I really have a very strong belief in that you cannot take a problem and treat it with another problem.
That's right.
You can't give a drug addict more drugs. You can't give a thief more opportunity to steal.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand. I mean, I guess the thing of it is I'm looking for positive influences.
Mm-hmm.
And when my son, he wanted to go out for football. I said, this is great. I want him to go out for football. I did everything I could to get this kid squared away so that he could do this. And we got into a situation where the counselor was saying, no, you don't want the child playing football. He needs to come to these meetings. He needs to take these meetings more seriously. He needs to get more involved in these group discussions. And the football should go onto the back burner. And the disturbing fact about all of this is when the kids were going through probably the most trying portion, I had turned to a local church in the community, struggled, really struggled, to put them into a Christian school environment. And in the process of all of this, the Christian school and church told me, well, we really can't deal with your children's problems. You're going to have to put them in public schools, And I wound up doing that. And I really, at this point, I think they're almost better off in public school. But it's a disturbing thing as a parent to think you have no choice, and a child has to be subjected to this. Now, I will say this: during the time that he was in this program, his behavior got stranger and stranger and stranger.
Of course, he's concentrating on the problem instead of doing something
exactly.
other.
And so with the help of, we're back with our original Christian counselor who's counseling the kids.
Okay, Ted, we have about 2 minutes here, they tell me, before we are absolutely dead end done. And and when we talked, I think we talked 2 hours on the phone that day. It was, in fact, every time we talk, it's a long time. But I wanted you to come on the air because I think that's what today's journal is about. We need to say these things, that even the church needs to pay attention to what's happening in the church and get outside the walls and help the hurting. And they didn't help you.
No.
And you turned away, didn't you?
Oh yeah. I don't attend church anywhere now. I think what it amounts to is I think Christians have become a group of religious hobbyists. We have our cantatas.
Some of them.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm putting in a group.
Yeah.
We have our cantatas at churches. We have big, beautiful buildings. The most significant thing I think I've ever heard is I listened one day to Dr. Lester Summerall in a church where he said that God had given him a message, and that was that the hungry people were praying and asking for food, and God's Spirit was moving on the people, but no one was responding to God's call. And I think it was Gloria Copeland made the statement. She says, instead of listening to what God wants us to do, we're too busy carrying potato salad to bereaved widows. And I really believe that. I do.
You know what I hope, Ted, and I think about this, and 522 times I've sat here in front of this camera with some people that I know have overcome and have walked it. They've been varying levels of maturity and belief. But I want to apologize to you from the church. I mean, that we should fail, and I don't mean to represent them, I represent myself as the church, as part of the church, that we should not fail each other. You know, you should not fail me, Ted, by not walking with your Jesus, and I should not fail you by being less spiritual than your standards, but I am, and forgive me, okay?
You know, I know that people say, well, you don't watch men, you keep your eyes on Christ, you don't watch men. But then we're all connected together.
Yes.
We're not, and no one is off to themselves, you know. And I know we're admonished to not forsake the gathering of ourselves together, but then you begin to wonder who is ourselves, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, can we be connected with the wrong group? Can we be in
That's
with,
right.
you know?
We need to watch.
And I think it's I think it's a shame that we're losing local programming on the station. I really do. I want to say that there's no telling how many people are touched by television. Television is a magical thing. You know, we don't know. It's like radio.
Powerful.
You don't know where it's going.
That's right.
And when you put the address up on the screen, I want to say I think it's extremely important. If there are Christians watching that have any gumption about them at all, they need to write, and they need whatever means of support needs to be to keep local. Because there is no local television programming here.
No, this
in
is
this area.
really
This is the only local Christian programming in this city, and and after today, it's gone. You know.
Oh, let's go to Harry Yates first. Yes, we have a very special thing that we're going to do. He did the devotional, but while he was here, he also taped something called The Night Before Jesus Came.
20 years ago, the Lord gave me this to write from the old night before Christmas that we all heard as children. Rather than Santa Claus, it talks about the coming of Jesus. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through God's house, the Spirit was stirring, causing souls to arouse. The word had been preached by the pastor with care, and hope was restored when none had been there. God's children were nestled all snug in His arms, while visions of rapture kept all our hearts warm. Jesus in His glory and God in His power had just finished saying, "Now this is the hour." When up in the air there rose up a brightness of love and of beauty and majestic uprightness, I ran to the windows to see all these wonders, dashed out on the lawn, watched the sky burst asunder. The moon on the crest of the hills and the mountains showed us living waters from the heavenly fountains. When what to my wondering eyes should be seen but a legion of angels led by the King. The leader is Jesus, who's God's Son divine. I knew in a moment when He said, "Come and dine." More rapid than lightning the angels they came. In a twinkling of an eye He called them by name. "Go Gabriel and Michael and Abdon and Zer and Joab and Malcolm and Heber and Sir. Go get my children and don't let one fall. Go quickly, go quickly, go quickly now all." Then in a moment I saw in the sky the glorious portals of the sweet by and by. As I came to myself and was looking above, I found what I sought, the Savior of love. He was clothed in white linen from His head to His toe. Not a blemish was spotted through His radiant glow. He's beauty and love and all that is good, and surpassed all my dreams like I knew that He would. His eyes, oh how piercing, His smile is so sweet. I cried when I saw nail scars in His hands and His feet. The look of the Master is good to behold, the gleam in His eye much finer than gold. A wink of His eye and a turn of His head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke but one word to call us all home, the same as all ages, that word was come. We lifted our hands and were praising our Lord. We began to ascend at the sound of this word. The last thing He said as we disappeared was, "Come home, my children. I've waited for years."
Mississippi, in a crowded one-room shack. I grew up picking cotton on the wrong side of the track. But I remember Mama saying, son, don't ever lose your pride. Brother, can you tell me what color am I? I was born in Arizona, where I was free to roam, on a crowded reservation that they said was my home. But an eagle has no spirit if he's not allowed to fly. Brother, can you tell me what color am I? What color am I when you're looking within? Can you tell what I feel by the shade of my skin? And just like you, I laugh and I cry. Brother, can you tell me what color am I? From a strange and distant land, somewhere far across the sea, I came to work the railroad in the land of the free. But they treated me with hatred for the shape of my eyes. Brother, can you tell me what color am I? I was born in America, and in my heart there is a dream. We will one day live together as a nation at peace, like the story in the Bible about the lion and the lamb, or where it finally doesn't matter what color I am. Whoa. Tell what I feel by the shade of my skin. And just like you, I laugh and I cry. Brother, can you tell me what color am I? Oh, just like you, I laugh and I cry. Brother, can you tell me what color am I? Does it really matter what color I am? Red, yellow, black, or white, we're all precious in His sight. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. We've got to live together.
Yeah, John, this is so wonderful to have you back. You were on the show about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Yeah, and I just had to have you come back for this one. I even asked you if you would do a duet, and we were learning it even as we came in the door this morning.
Yes, I appreciate you having me back, Susan. It's
Well,
a pleasure.
you know, one thing we didn't get to do was that song on the last show, and I know
Right.
that's part of a new project. Is that right?
Yes, that's going to be on my album.
All right,
Coming out
Diadem.
in May. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Tribute Records, division of Diadem.
When you got on this album, was that the first time you'd been on a major label like that?
Yes.
It was. Okay, pretty excited.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Ecstatic.
Oh wow. Well, you got the voice, and I remember when you were
thank
here
you.
before. You are by day what?
A carpenter.
A carpenter. Yeah. Maybe the most noble of all.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure, beginning with nothing and ending up with something, beautiful. Not saying that my work is beautiful, but when you're a carpenter, you can see the each stage of a project and see it from beginning to end. And it's always good to see the final product.
All right. Well, we're going to look forward to seeing the final product on Diadem Records, and that song, What Color Am I? Is that the name of the project?
Well, we haven't really decided, but that's a good idea.
I love it. I think that is so good. Let's do this other song, okay?
Let's do it.
We got a Sandy Patty, B.B. Winans duet. Let's move out here a little bit.
Okay.
I think I'm frogging up on myself here, so you jump in there and just cover me up, all right?
The one who placed the moon and stars to shine up in the sky, who holds the world together from his kingdom way on high.
He is as watchful as a father.
Oh, yeah.
Every child on earth. He knows the dreams you're dreaming from the moment of your birth.
Wherever you go, whatever you do, he watches over you. He's the one who is your friend. In your night, he's always there.
Wherever you are,
You're never alone. His eyes on your journey till you make it home. And you can know he watches over you. He watches over you. Your turn.
you hear him in an evening breeze that whispers of his nerve. You see him when the sunrise paints a morning sky aflame.
Yes, he's there within the silence and the stillness of your mind. You know him through a cross of love. Stretches over time. Wherever you go,
Whatever you do,
he watches over you. He's the one who hears your prayer. Deep in your night, he's always there.
wherever you are,
You're never alone. His eyes are on your journey till you make it home. And you can know he watches.
watches over you.
Nothing in this life can separate you from his love.
Even when the nights around you, he will shine his light on you.
Wherever you go, whatever you do, he watches over you. He's the one who hears your prayer. And deep in your night, he's always there.
Wherever you are,
you're never alone. He's on your journey till you make it home. You know he watches.
watches over you. Watches over you.
He watches He watches.
Watches
He
over
watches.
you. He watches over you. God bless you, Susan.
We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Laverne Barton. I'm with First Realty Group in Nashville. I mention that because First Realty Group is a very fine, caring organization, and they're giving me the opportunity to share with you from my heart. As you know, Christmas is approaching, and my thoughts are with missionaries in foreign countries. I think of them in much the same way I think of soldiers in the armed forces at war. And our missionaries are at war. They're in a spiritual warfare every day, and they're often attacked physically as well. The food is poor, the conditions are deplorable, and they need to hear from us, especially at the holidays. So write them, send them a card, and if you can afford to, send them a gift, and pray for them every day. They cannot fight these battles alone. So let me encourage you to be a friend to these soldiers in the Lord's army. There's a blessing in store for you when you do. And if you don't know one, call me and I'll send you a list of names and addresses. There's a verse I'd like to share with you from Hebrews chapter 6, verse 10, and it says, "For God is not unrighteous to forget your work and labor of love, which you have shown toward his name, and that you have ministered to the saints and do minister." So honor the name of the Lord Jesus Christ this Christmas and minister to his saints. He will not forget what you do for them. You have his word on it. God bless you and Merry Christmas.
If only in my
This wonderful woman, Laverne Barton, is just one of the 1,200 plus guests that were on the show, Today's Journal, while it's been on this last two and a half years. And for me, it's been such a blessing because people like Laverne have become what I think will be just really lasting friends, and that's the blessing. You know, I was talking with a friend not too long ago about a story I read, of course, in the Bible. We read it and then sometimes it stands out so strong to us. But the story of Rachel in the Bible and how she gave birth to this child after being tormented that nothing would go right in her life and that she was a disgrace to her family and whatever because she was childless. But the child she eventually had was a man named Joseph, who became almost a king in Egypt and led a whole lot of people to God. And so we never know down the road what's going to happen or what kind of a seed we've planted. And I want to say thank you to a bunch of people who came here and planted seeds, and I guess we'll only know in heaven just where all of that went and who of you out there were touched by so many different lives that came on the show. And I want to acknowledge them right now. But first, I want to go back and do a little memory thing here. I always was a performer. You know, most of my life I was an entertainer, and for 14 years I had been on the road. And I did my first commercial, my first promo here for this show 2.5 years ago, and I want to show you just a little 49-second clip that shows you what I did. I'm Susan Meredith, and I'm the host of the brand new Morning Edition show. We're on every morning weekdays at 7 o'clock, and we hope you'll join us for the best in news, editorials, features, and some of the best music in town. I also have some provocative conversations with great guests, and Monday morning my guests will be Christian counselor Dr. Buddy Lynch and also funny man Butch Baker. And Butch is the fella that takes over for Nashville Now's Ralph Emery now and then. He'll be with me. There'll be some great music performances that day too. And join me at 7 o'clock, please, on Monday morning. This is Susan Meredith. Thank you for watching. And goodbye. Thank you for watching. Please explain the universe. We had some laughs out here. We had many a wonderful, joyful tear, too, by people that knew the Lord and couldn't wait to tell about Him. And I don't know that we have a whole lot more time for that, but I want to say these thank yous before it's over with. I want to thank first Brian Glassford for asking me to do this work, to begin this 2.5 years ago, to CTN, Christian Television Network out of Clearwater, Florida, for airing this show, and for Mobile, Alabama, and Pensacola, Florida over WHBR.